Welcome again to Wickerson Studios. I'm going to try and produce one of these a day. I've been making videos for the last month, but I think I've actually figured something out with digital modeling for the 21st century sculptor. Thanks, Jean-Paul Reddy from Paris that gave me that name, so I appreciate that. We're going to jump right into this, but before I do, I've got the script here, which I'm going to grab. It's not too big. I'm going to try replicating it. But I also wanted to show you a little number slider to show you how fun this little control is, and it's a lot more complex than that. Basically, I wanted people to be able to bring something out into the world, make a nice surface edit, learn how to loft that together. So the animation's here. We're already a minute in, so here it is. You have total control over this thing. So let's make it without further ado. All right, so let's take off what we have here. We'll see if we can get through both parts initially, but we'll take it off and just start. So what have I done here? There's a lot of homage to Daniel Christev, who really has a mathematical mind that taught me an awful lot. I've modified a lot of things he's done, and then I've ended up collaging together different ideas and synthesizing different things I've learned. So let's basically jump into this, going into vector tab and going right into a planar surface. And I'm a little slower on planar surfaces right now, and I'm pretty sure I should be at surfaces if I want a planar surface. So sorry about that. Primitive, right off the bat, planar surface, bring it in. You might want something pretty big to start. So like I said, number sliders, type anything between 10 and 100. You're going to get a nice range between 0 and 100 integers. And that'll be fine for what I want to do. And I'm going to crank that up on the scale. And there we go. I'm not going to bother centering it or anything. And then just a nice practice that you might want to do if you're dealing with a surface, bring it in. And boom, bring in your surface and you're ready to go. So you can see a lot going on here. Initially, I'm going to have to grab the dimensions of that. And this is a trick that Daniel Christev taught me. I think it's one that is great to use. Dimensions, I'm just going to type it in, bring it up. I'm going to pop my surface into that. And he has this great mathematical sense of playing with it with the division node and with the multiplication node, and then being careful around flooring or ceiling numbers by using an integer. Great little tool tip right here. So let's grab our U. Let's grab our V. Let's pop that in as a result to A. And let's take a little number slider, and we're going to run between, we'll still do type in 12, just get around 14, which should be fine. I'll set it around 15. Pop that into the integer slider, and what I have is a nice U count that right now is sitting at 18. And that U count, well, this is going to alter the V count. So what I'm going to end up doing is dividing my surface. And this is a great way to start thinking about objects, I think, right here. There we go. You're going to grab your surface over, and you always have to come back to your original. That's why I have that nice reference there. Some people like to type in names and change all that. I think that takes a lot of time. So my V count and my U count, which should be pretty simple, coming right off my number slider itself. And what happens here when you take a look at this is you get a boxy kind of divided surface, which is really what he taught me, and I'm going to keep it pretty low to start, low count to start, which is fine. And with that, he already does a scale tool. I'm not sure why he scales it down, but we may as well go through that practice of doing that, taking a planar surface, grabbing, you want to find the area of that surface, which will give you a centroid, because that'll scale to it. So area is a great tool to pull in a surface. Boom, you're left with a centroid, and then we can actually scale this transformation. I guess it's just to give me more control over it later on. Sorry, Daniel, if it feels like I'm ripping you off, but you know, without you, I wouldn't be going anywhere into this. But you'll notice a lot of things familiar with this as I go. Centroid's going to come from there, and the factor is I'm going to keep that down under probably 2. So I'm going to go from 0 dot dot. Oh shit, 3 point. Oh, pardon me. Not for kids this video, I guess. Factor, we're going to bring it in at 3, and it won't run at 0, so I have to bring it up a little bit. There we go. We scale up, or we can scale down. And I have a blue so you can see what we're actually doing. And as I go, I'll probably delete things as I go and take the preview off. But because I have this clicked, it's nice because it'll still show me what I want. And then if you zoom selected, even if they're not on preview, you can still click on to see what you have. So I have my points. Let's continue right along. I have a surface. I'm going to do a surface edit on that. You'll see this little data that's stretching over here, and I'll show you that in a minute. So let's do an evaluate surface tool, which doesn't come up. I wish it did. It was on a hot tool. It will pop right up. I'm going to reparameterize my surface now so it runs from 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. That's something you're going to want to do all the time. And I'm going to take my scale factor, my scale surface, bring it in. And the point I want to basically scale to is all those points. And all those points come in here. but I've had to change the number count so it works because we're dividing a surface. It works the same with series and ranges, if you remember that. Without having to type this in again, I did it on my last video. If you are questioning what I'm doing, I'm just watching the time. I'm pulling in an expression node. I'm right-clicking here, setting this to X, and I'm taking out the Y component by zooming in and deleting that. Heck, may as well do it. Let's pop in here. Let's get down to X. Leave that. We should be fine. Write your script in there. And literally, pretty simple scripts to start, but I think they're a good habit to getting into. Was it -1 or +1? I think it was no, it was +1. So I had to add 1. So what I'm going to do is basically grab my grab my integer value, add 1 to it, put that in for my point count, and oh, I'm sorry, that's going to come on later. What I need is an MD slider to evaluate the surface at all points. So I have this new surface and an MD slider's under params, and I shouldn't be getting ahead of myself. I should probably walk through these a little bit. Oh, graph mapper, not what I want. MD slider, it's going to evaluate that point right in the middle, and if I slide that around, you can evaluate that, and that's going to give you a lot of control over your forms as well. You could type that in as a domain. You could run from. There's so many ways to do it. This is a fast little tool, the MD slider. Okay, we're at 6 minutes. We got to run. What I basically have now is my points, and I have a distance between those points I want to generate, and distance may be in mass. I know it's around bounds somewhere. It's probably in the another tool. I'm just going to have to type in distance. I don't recall. So I want to know a distance between grafted points, all those points, to the basic flattened points of the divided surface. So if you're not understanding data trees, it's very good to get into the habit of jumping into your param viewer and seeing what actually you're dealing with before and after those graphs. So here I've got one branch with 81 items, but if I don't flatten that, I've got 9 branches with 91 items. Well, I want every point lining up to every point here, and I want my data, I want my fancy wires on my display fancy wires, I want them to actually look similar. So as I flatten that one down, you're going to notice this one and this one's been grafted up. Now, if I grafted this one up here and then flattened it, took the graft out there, I believe that will work the same, but I'm basically going to follow my script before just to make sure I've got it right. So we're grafting up that information. And now we have a bunch of distances, so let's continue. And he's got a really cool function in here that he's typed in, and he's actually grafted those points as well as they come in. W, so I'm just going to steal the script instead of taking the time to type it because I am going to try and keep moving, and I'm going to have my W value on my sign, which is multiplication, and I've had to change this not from X to Y, I changed it to W and T, which is a technique that Daniel Christev uses quite a bit. That said, I'm going to just get in the habit of 1.000 will give me a range all the way up to 1, and I can slide that back down to a nice number slider that's very low. My script is working, and if you go on in, you'll see that it says no syntax errors detected in the expression. We're already at 18 minutes. We don't need this param viewer to look at. And we're going to try and get through this first half and then go on to the end of the half. He takes his data, and that's a good reason to have the param viewer, which I always leave up. I've got one branch with 225 items. If I end up using the sets tool to control my data tree and use the flip matrix tool, what that's going to do is it's going to take all those 226 lines. It's going to make one branch with a whole bunch of branches with one item on each. So that's going to be flipping that. It's kind of like grafting it to all the items. And I've got a mass multiplication here tool that I may use later. And I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And you'll see what that ends up doing to the geometry. Mass multiplication. I'm going to have it there at the ready. And I'm going to flatten my data results just because I'll need them later on. But what I can do is bypass that, and I can go directly up to what I wanted to end with, which was a surface from points tool, because I want to build my first surfaces. So if I jump into my surface, that's my sets. If I jump into my surface and I do surface from points right here, it's going to want move geometry because I wanted to have a transformation on that, basically grabbing my move tool, working that back through the Z, and because I want to have an effect on it, I'm going to actually have to type in the Z vector, and I'm going to want to have a multiplication on that, And it's interesting, I have a couple of multiplications that I'm ending up using here because I modified the script a little bit. I want to modify a digit, and I'm going to go 12.00 because I want to have some decimal points, so it's kind of a smooth transition. I'm going to take that data, multiply it, and move that transformation. And of course, all I need right now, if you shake this down, you say, well, what actually am I moving? We'll chase that back, and you're going to find out exactly what I'm moving all the way back to these. Had to truncate this one a little bit as we chase back that geometry. We're going to chase that geometry all the way back to what I just pointed out, these points from the divide surface. So that leaves us with a pretty cool geometry that we can take off. And this is the first half that really I pulled and modified a little bit, kept a little simpler than what I'm just watching the time, 10 minutes, than what Daniel Christev has done. And you can take that off and you can start to see what's happening as you play with those geometries, similar to what I had up top. So as you change the scale, you're going to be able to have some pretty cool forms of surface. If you start to play with where the scale factor goes on changing the scale of that, you can also move your ND slider to have an effect on where the sine curve center is. You've got an amazing amplification node that starts to do some crazy stuff to here, which is pretty beautiful. And you've got an ability to raise and lower that as a base curve as it comes in. I'm going to continue with this and do more with it as we go through it. You'll see if I plug this multiplication in here, what happens. It, just give it a second. There we go. It should affect it. Oh, with the double multiplication. I forgot. I have to go in here and grab this value times this value, and I'm squaring it, and then I'll pop it in. It should have a little bit of an effect. So it just had a little subtle one on there, but it does have a little bit of an effect as to what's happening when I square that, as opposed to staying to this one. So it does make a subtle difference as you make the simple form simpler. But there we go. We have a surface to start. And not only that surface, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to bring it in here, divide that surface, and we're going to extrude that surface. So that copy is going to be moved up, and then we're going to grab the sides. And I'm not going to be able to do it in the next 12 minutes, so I have to do a B, 3 minutes. I have to do a B part of this. That first half really comes out of a really nice Daniel Christev script, pulling and pushing it, modifying it a little bit, making it a little simpler, trying to get your head around it. We'll grab this first one, kind of say it's done at grouping, and we'll make it my nice passive, beautiful color blue. Oops. And there we go. And say that's done, and we'll go into the second half in a minute. Thanks for watching. I hope you watch the second half as well. This is basically, sorry to stretch it out, it is digital modeling for the 21st century sculptor.